Hello, and welcome to the Practice Forward podcast. I'm your host, Owen Bush, and today I'm joined by David Bois. Hi, David.
Hi, Owen.
How are you?
I'm good. Beautiful day here in Boston, and we're really busy right now, so all good.
All right, excellent. So thanks for your time today. David Bois is a partner at Arrowstreet. It's a Boston-based firm known for tackling complexity with clarity. Over 3 decades, he's led ambitious projects across labs, housing, and mixed-use sectors, often navigating the dense overlap of policy, performance, and design. From kinetic facades to net zero urban infill, David's work blends BIM fluency, sustainability logic, and real-world delivery. He's not just integrating tools, he's redefining how they shape practice. And you can see it in the fabric of Boston, which I've seen. I didn't even, now that I've gotten more familiar with Arrowstreet's work, I recognize a number of buildings I've seen there. And you guys are really helping to, reimagine a new vision of what Boston's going to look like. So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, happy to be here. I think it's funny that you mentioned that, after doing a little bit of research, you kind of recognize a bunch of our buildings, because it's one of the things that I think we're really proud of, that there's not sort of a signature that you look at and say, oh, that's an Arrowstreet building. Each of our buildings is really unique, and we're really trying to solve, our clients' challenges with those projects. We're not trying to put our stamp and our monogram on these buildings. We're trying to we treat each project as a really unique exercise.
That's right. And actually, David, I think you may be my first guest who's actually a customer of Scandaplan as well. And it's interesting that we got to know each other for a project that is nothing at all like the ones we're going to be talking about today. But, we worked on a historic mansion upstate together, and it was kind of like, we've scanned a lot of like spooky haunted mansions before, but this one was absolutely probably the scariest site that we've ever, my scanning technicians are not afraid of like falling through the floor. They're not afraid of breathing mold. They don't really care about that stuff, but sometimes they are a little superstitious when they go into buildings about, spirits. So,
well, ultimately it's going to be a really amazing spa hotel, but for about 100 years, what was originally a mansion built for a Civil War general and his wife had been a psychiatric hospital, including a wing from the 1970s that, thankfully we were able to demolish. Not a lot of character there, but, definitely would have made a great backdrop for some horror movies. Pretty scary stuff.
Yeah. Well, it was a great, I was so glad we got to collaborate on that, because it was a great opportunity for us to share, our kind of historic preservation grade modeling. And in that case, we modeled a full pipe organ, as well as some other pretty interesting, tricky stuff.
Yeah.
So
the building's incredible. There's 2, well-known architects, Frederick Withers, probably a little bit lesser known, but Richard Morris Hunt edition on it as well. And that's where that pipe organ is. So the modeling that you guys did was incredibly valuable. And, the scanning, the Massport scanning that your team did, we're deep into construction. We still pull that up today to look at things.
Yeah. So as we just mentioned, your work really spans across a lot of different typologies, right? So, but what remains consistent in your definition of good architecture, right? So you've worked labs, housing, hybrid reuse. Where do your design instincts stay anchored in all of that?
I think for us, we always want to remember that our buildings are for people. understanding the experience that you get when you go in those buildings. Every one of them is different, but we really want the users of the building to enjoy being in the buildings. I mean, that's really the definition of success for us. The architectural elements, the design elements, those are critically important, but they really need to serve those inhabitants of the building.
Right. So, well, a lot of the work you're doing, we're going to talk about 3 projects that you've been working on with Arrowstreet, Gibson Point, Congress Square, and Seaport Circle. These are all very signature projects for the city of Boston. And they, I imagine, come with, and they're also very much pushing the envelope as far as sustainability, and I can't remember which one is LEED Gold or Platinum or whatever, but they are very, amazing and each in their own way. So you are, going to be, I guess, blending design and policy quite often in a situation like this. So how do you reconcile your design with, policy-driven sustainability?
Well, I mean, most of my career has been in and around the Boston area, so it's kind of ingrained at this point.
Yeah.
We're fortunate and challenged in Massachusetts because we tend to try to be a leader along with California. I think that the reality of it is the policies are they're intended to do good, right? They're intended to actually improve the built environment, and we're all for that. The challenge becomes when the policies just kind of get blind, and it's it's a one-liner, something as simple as you must meet passive house, and we've seen examples of passive. Some of the earliest examples of passive house were in affordable housing projects with tiny little windows so that they had the tightest envelope possible, and kind of creating spaces that people wouldn't really want to inhabit. So navigating through that and understanding where technology has gotten us with things as simple as window technology, building systems, so that we can do passive. We're doing market rate passive house projects right now as we speak. So from the sidewalk and from the rental brochures, you won't be able to tell anything different other than the fact that they'll be celebrating that they're this sustainable.
Right. So, well, when you have to choose between speed and sustainability and cost, and when there's really no real right answer between those 3 things, how do you what's your framework that you use for making decisions?
Well, there's a lot of different levers you can pull. You can be, so right now in the state of Massachusetts, pretty much all new multifamily residential projects are going to have to be passive house. Whether they get certified or not is a different story, but they're going to have to meet those requirements. So understanding all the different levers you can pull to meet that level of sustainability is critically important. We're lucky, we're fortunate that we've got a team of that's really well versed in sustainability and passive house construction and design.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think I've done a project in almost 30 years that hasn't had some form of value engineering. So thinking about that early in the process and making decisions, I like to tell my teams, budget is one of your design parameters. If you ignore the budget, you ignore it at your own peril, because you're going to be redesigning things, and something that we felt was a critical element in the project, maybe even our client felt it was a critical element in the project, gets sacrificed because you haven't thought about how it fits with the overall budget.
Right. So when you're working with let's say when you're mentoring some of your younger staff, You know, how do you get them to really, you know, reconcile design sensibility with all these requirements around passive home and sustainability, so to make it really, you know, come out of the design somehow?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, again, we preach here that design isn't just aesthetic. It's, you know, it's performance, it's function. All of those things blend together to make a good design.
Mhm.
I will say that the younger generations coming out of school now, it's different than when I came out. Like,
Yeah.
when I came out, there wasn't as much talk about sustainability. When the talk started, it was a layer on top of things. And,
Mhm.
you know, I can't count the number of times I had clients say, well, let's just go for the low hanging fruit, or ask us, how many points do I have if I don't do anything? Right. And
Mhm.
that's really not the intent of LEED, or, you know, we love Passive House because, you know, it's something that just kind of continues to give back to the inhabitants. It's healthier. It's less to operate your building. You know, it's just a better system. But again, like I said before, if you just simply say, well, I can only have 30% windows, you just apply that evenly across the building, that's not good design, right? So it's balancing that performance with the aesthetics is where the magic happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about this Congress Square project, which is probably a big signature project for you and also for the city. I For our audience who can't see it, what this is, it's like it's a it's a 7-story glass addition above a historic building from 1906, which was a bank. Is that right?
It is, yeah. It was the Shawmut Bank, and was landmarked because it was I think it was the biggest bank building, you know, or the first building for Shawmut Bank. But it was landmarked because of its history in banking. It's been a few years since we were, you know, all up on exactly all that history, but that was the purpose of the national landmark.
So this is as I said, it's a 7-story, very, you know, contemporary looking glass, kind of a wedge shape uh, above this historic building. And then it also involved kind of rethinking the choreography of the urban planning as well, because there's a new pathway as part of this. So
Yeah. So when we got involved in this project, we were working with Related Beal, and they had bought the project from Fidelity, and it was Fidelity's headquarters. So
okay.
they inhabited the whole site. They were very inward looking, and, you know, bank buildings are typically kind of fortress like, right? You want the building to be as strong feeling as possible. This building had 7 vaults in it. It didn't really open up very well to the street. And Related knew that Fidelity was moving out. They were going to have to re-tenant this building, and they wanted to find a way to make it more accessible and improve the street life. We spent a lot of time walking around the site and realized that, you know, it was a major link between a couple of MBTA stops. So people were moving between the T and their office buildings through the alleys, and the alleys were awful. They were places where people were smoking. There were dumpsters there. Didn't feel safe. Didn't feel, you know, like a place you wanted to be, but there were people moving through it regularly. We came up with the idea. Actually, my partner really came up with the idea. She basically came up with the idea to repurpose that into kind of a laneway, much like the laneways in Melbourne. Really tight little spaces, I don't think we're 100% there yet because one of the buildings still needs to be redeveloped. It was sold to another developer who hasn't moved forward with it yet, but they have the ability to put retail right on that laneway, which will really make it more an even better place. What we did do was cut the lobby from the new lobby for 40 Water, which is Congress Square. We cut the lobby all the way through to that alleyway so that if you were coming from the T, you could come in the back entrance. You didn't have to go all the way around the block. And that's helped quite a bit. So we repaved everything, improved the lighting, got rid of all of the trash. It's still in the early mornings. It's still a service way, but it feels really different and feels much better and safer now.
Wow. And so this addition, it actually repurposes 5 buildings.
Yeah.
It's built on top of 5 different buildings with a whole area beneath it. That's this lane you're describing.
It's a whole city block. And
yeah.
There had been, before us, there had been a proposal to basically do what we like to call the facadeectomy. They were going to keep the facades of, several of the buildings and then just build a skyscraper in the back of it. And it was just this glass thing that just went straight up. It never went
forward.
They
didn't keep any of the previous building. They would have gutted the entire building, right?
They were gutting the entire building. They were just keeping some facades and just keeping that kind of pasted onto the lower levels and going up.
Which to me is just, I hate it when they call that adaptive reuse, because it's really, you lose all the embodied energy of the building. It's really just it's kind of the Instagram version of adaptive reuse.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we did, and again, my director of sustainability talks about this much more eloquently than I would, but we did, life cycle analysis. We did embodied carbon analysis and looked at how much we save by not doing something like that, by reusing the lower floors.
Yeah.
What was also really interesting, Related got the perfect tenant because Publicis, which was Digitas and Sapient, were merging under this Publicis flag. And I forget which one was which. I think Sapient was coming from a traditional Boston building. Digitas was coming from one of the newer buildings, and they were getting kind of fused together in this new location.
Right.
So that split and having the modern upper floors and the historic lower floors kind of fit their personality perfectly.
Mm-hmm. So how's the reception been to this building in Boston? It's how long has it been open like this?
It opened right around 2020. It opened sort of at the end of 2020, I think it was, or early 21. Which obviously is a challenge because
did you guys renovate extensively the existing buildings as well, or?
Yeah, we did. We did, so we renovated all the floors. One of the things that, obviously when you add floors, you need to add elevators. In this particular case, it was kind of, there was kind of fortunate. There was a light well in the middle of the building that didn't really get a lot of light, and had been used up by mechanical shafts over the course of the life of the building.
Yeah.
We were able to take that and do a little bit more demo and put in a full, modern core, get rid of the multiple elevators that were scattered around close to the exterior walls.
Yeah.
So we improved the office floor plates. We added the elevators that we needed and brought that core up through the building to support the structure above. So
wow.
You mentioned earlier, you mentioned scan to plan and the work you guys do. I think you would find this pretty humorous. So we did all of our drawings over the course of a year, that last year that Fidelity was in the building, with almost no access to the building. We built our models based on historic documents, whether they were the original historic drawings that we could find in the archives or tenant drawings that some of the work that Fidelity had done in there over the years. And then finally, when Fidelity left and Consigli started doing the demolition and the construction, they scanned the building, and we had to reconcile everything in really short order. Not
And
how we like to do our project.
Was it dramatic? How off are the drawings?
There were, I don't remember all of the details, but there was a bit of scrambling to get everything sorted.
Yeah.
And, we were threading, I think, 17 columns through the building, so we had to be really accurate.
Sure, of course. Wow. Well, it's kind of a miraculous looking structural feat to have such a. I mean, the foundation for this new structure is 5 totally completely different buildings. So
it's fun. It's right outside. Coincidentally, it's right across the street from our office. So on a regular basis,
oh wow,
coming and going from the office, we get to see this at different times of the day, which is always great. But it's got a really stunning soffit that we worked with a company out of California called Chrysler to develop. We did this through 3D prototyping, both 3D printing, and we actually we went out there and visited with them, learned from them what their parameters were, right?
Yep.
So we didn't want to design something that they were going to come back and say, oh, we can do this, but it's going to cost you 10 times more, or we can't really get this to work. So we worked back and forth really closely with them to figure out what we could do to achieve our design vision. And it looks like kind of a bronze undulating metal. It's actually fiberglass with like an automotive paint on it. So, but we walk out of the building and probably at least weekly see somebody stopping, taking pictures of it. So pretty gratifying.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty amazing to see that. It's literally 2 centuries colliding with each other. So let's discuss the Seaport Circle project. So is this project is under development now? Is it?
Yeah, it's on a little bit of a pause. The lab market is, it's like a lot of things in the development world, slowed a little bit right now. I think everybody kind of knew in the Boston area that 2023, 2024, we were in for a little bit of a glut of lab space because of the amount of buildings that were being built. So the absorptions slowed down a little bit, but it's going to be a great signature building once it goes, and it will go.
This is definitely going to be a signature building for Boston. And, it's in this neighborhood in Boston where there are a lot of interesting, new developments and signature architectural things. And it's interesting for me. I grew up there and I left in 1990. So to go back and see all these new buildings is pretty amazing. So this building, one of the things about this building is that all the occupiable floors are raised for storm surge and sea level rise. So
as well as to create a bus line station or an MBTA station for the Silver Line. So the Silver Line goes right through the site. So this is a public MBTA stop at the ground level. But yeah, we are, you know, it's in the Seaport. The area is susceptible to sea level rise and flooding.
Yeah.
We saw that, you know, a few years back with some superstorms. So everything we do down there we have to be really careful. The project right next door to this, the Hyatt Place in Aura project, same developer, that one's built. We did that with them and finished that a few years back, also probably right around the beginning of the pandemic. And that actually that's raised as well. We raised you know, it's a balancing act. You want to raise the sidewalk up as much as you can, but you also need to make these places both accessible and inviting. So you can't just say, okay, I need to get everything up 4 feet. So you're going to go up a set of stairs that's 4 feet or a set of switchback ramps. What we did there, again, everything is kind of elevated up to the second level, but the ground level, the glazing systems actually resist water up to 6 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a fun day when we prototyped that, because that went in and was tested, and we've got video of sort of the fish tank feeling. You were standing outside a fish tank because the contractors built a pool on the outside of the glass and filled it with water.
Well, I was talking to my friend Scott Bishop, who's in your area. He's a landscape designer and urban ecologist, and he's working on I think it said it was a 160-acre project. I think it's out in Quincy, but it's on the harbor as well. And he was just saying how he is absolutely designing for this to be underwater. But he was also saying that essentially you can't just wrap Boston in seawalls, because if you do that, you're not going to have any of the delicious seafood and marine life that gives the city so much character. So if you want to have your clam chowder and your striped sea bass and everything, you can't just be having seawalls everywhere.
Yeah, definitely true. And we've spent a lot of time, you know, as far back as, you know, the mid 20-teens, we were working with ULI on what was the Living with Water report, and a group of us studied a bunch of different sites, and we still are, you know, we still learn things every day. We do a lot of work in East Boston, and when you trace through East Boston, really vulnerable, except that it's vulnerable in just a lot of it's vulnerable in just a few areas. So, you know, I know the city's working on this, and I know developers are engaged as well. We always look for ways to kind of add some level of resiliency, not just for our sites, but for neighborhood sites as well, if we can.
Right. So this is anyway, this building, even though it's on pause right now, it's going to be a biomedical lab or a biotech lab, and you've done a lot of work with labs over your career, and so you know, we with Scan the Planet, we scan a lot of laboratories, and because their HVAC systems and their MEP systems are very complex and oftentimes don't really match the drawings. So, I mean, when you're trying to future-proof a building, so this is a new building with all kinds of new MEP and HVAC infrastructure, how do you future-proof that? Because since these lab codes are always changing and shifting all the time.
Yeah, it's a good question, because it's. I wish I had a crystal ball, right? Because the things do change so much. Sometimes it gets easier, believe it or not. Right now, you know, it used to be that you really couldn't get your chemicals much above the 4th floor. The rate of return, like, it just kept getting so much smaller than what the codes would allow, that it didn't make sense for the lab. So that's why you see a lot of lab buildings at 4 stories, and In Boston, we don't have that luxury, right?
Right.
Where you can go up, you need to go up because the land's so expensive. So what you would see is all the labs down low and then offices pushed up high. But the codes are changing, and those, those hazardous chemical values are actually going up on the upper levels, which has been helpful.
Yeah.
And then, in terms of the ventilation requirements, those have used to be 2 CFM of exhaust per square foot, and that's gone down to 1.5, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you multiply it over a 40,000 square foot floor plate, and you think about that going in through a shaft, it makes a big difference. It's a lot of additional floor area for people to use.
So when you're modeling a big building like this that has to be net zero, are you simulating that in BIM? How does that work exactly? How do you know? Can you explain maybe as simply as possible to me how you model something like that?
Yeah, you get a really large team of consultants together, and they all get to do one little part of it, and you kind of stitch it all in and figure it out. I don't know how to say it any other way, because it's we're good at certain things, and our mechanical engineers are good at others, and we bring in other people where we need to. But it's not easy. It's a complex process.
But I mean, when it's a new construction like this, do you ever get it to the point where it's like a real kind of digital twin where you can actually like simulate all the energy efficiency and water and all those things going through the building?
I'm going to be honest and say no. We really haven't gotten to the digital twin stage yet, and I think mostly it's just because there's all these levels of development for BIM, and the level of development it would take to do that is really at the top of the top of that list. And most clients we just don't have the time or the fees to do that for most of our clients.
Okay.
It is something, at the same time though, we're closer to that in some of our work with Massport. Because Massport really, the head of capital programs there, she really believes in BIM and wants to have a master model of the entire campus. So we've been working on that for years. And when we did our first project out there, we were scanning and building 50 feet into the adjacent property so that we could have all that and build our model so that we knew exactly where, and we weren't touching that in every place. We only touched it in a couple of areas, but we built the entire thing so we knew everything that was going on there when we were going to impact.
Right. So so I guess what David's talking about is Massport is the agency for transportation in Massachusetts. Much like in New York State, we have the Port Authority, and so they have an enormous portfolio of real estate that they've committed to really digitizing with scanning and modeling. And then I think in some cases they're actively renovating and transforming and reusing spaces, and I think in other cases they may just be digitizing for the sake of having an inventory and asset management and things like that. So
that's been in particular. There's so much infrastructure that's that can't be touched because it's mission critical. It's telecommunications, it's power to the terminals, and it's not just the buildings that need to be very accurate. It's all the underground. as well. So there's always a huge effort going on over there to make sure that everything is as accurate as humanly possible.
Wow. Yeah, and I was really impressed to hear that they're actually looking for LOD 350 models of all this stuff, which is, as you were saying, something that, you know, most customers don't have any kind of a budget for or any interest in. But it is sort of a predicate for having this kind of be able to create these type of digital twins that you can run simulations on and things like that. So yeah, that's all really exciting stuff. What have you collaborated with on Massport? Collaborated with Massport on.
Yeah, so Massport has two sort of groups. They have the capital programs that runs all the properties that they own, and then they have economic development that all of those projects in the Seaport that you're talking about, that's all their land. Okay. Those are private developments on 99-year leases on Massport land, and Massport's very involved. They have requirements for your models. They need to go back to Massport with certain parameters. But at the airport itself, and at the airport itself, we did the garage with the kinetic facade on it, which is next to the Hilton when you first come into the airport. Mm-hmm. We are currently working with them on Terminal E, in front of Terminal E, another parking structure. That is going to be fully wrapped in building integrated photovoltaics. Mm-hmm. About a gigawatt of power generation on that project. It also includes about a 180-foot wide by 700-foot long canopy that covers from the garage to the terminal, so that on the arrivals level and the departures level, you walk out and you'll be weather protected.
Wow. Interesting. So yeah, so I would imagine that this other project, this Gibson Point project, is that on Massport land also?
That is not. That is for a private developer, Redgate, who we do a lot of work with. They actually bought a junkyard, believe it or not. It was it's a pretty amazing site. It's on the confluence of two rivers that sort of go out to the ocean. At the point of Revere, the first point that you see when you come from Route 1A south towards the city, you come from Lynn and you cross the General Edwards Bridge, and it's the first point you see. And for I don't know how many years, but as long as I can remember, it's been a junkyard. It was a big metal building with, cars. And the first time we walked the site, got a, a big Cadillac pulled up and wasn't too happy with us for walking around until we told them who we were. They were supposed to know we were coming, but it was just, beat up cars. Like, there was actually asphalt that had been sort of poured over the years over the edge of the seawall, kind of towards the water. Just environmentally, it was rough. And Redgate came in committed to building a public boardwalk around the perimeter and tying the nearby Gibson Park to that boardwalk. And we put in a multifamily building with 295 units, probably the biggest sloping green roof definitely in Boston, and we think maybe in all of New England.
Well, that's a big signature thing of the as you approach this building, there's a kind of a V of a sloping green roof that creates an indent into the front of the building. Really quite signature, and pretty amazing to see you guys turfing it all and making. So what happens on that green roof now? Does anybody roll around on there, or
probably not safe. It's pretty steep.
oh yeah, it looks like it. Yeah.
But yeah, that was, we talked a little earlier about value engineering. So there's one of those things where you say green roof, and clients often just want to minimize it. Sometimes they recognize that it's really valuable, but it's always seen as expensive. The contractors immediately want to get rid of it. Add the complexity of putting it on a slope, and the initial perception was going to be that it was going to be really expensive. What I didn't say though is that green roof and that notch actually both adds a lot of sunlight to the courtyard space. This is what we like to call a donut building. It's a super tight site with a lot of constraints. The only way to maximize units was to create a donut, right? It just shapes around. There's an interior courtyard, but you're on the water. As I mentioned, you've got these two rivers. You've got sunset views with the city of Boston looking over water, which is really not common around here. The sunset obviously sets over the west, which is land for most of us.
Sure.
This actually looks across the river and has it's really picturesque. So the notch both added the sunlight to the courtyard, but it also added water views to a pretty good number of the units from the courtyard, which resulted in increased rents.
Sure.
So they can be sold as water view units. The rents are increased. So we both technically showed how we could do the roof so the contractor was comfortable. We showed the client that it was adding value to them. And when we did have to ultimately go through value engineering, it might have come up for one quick meeting, but it was immediately shut down. So there was no discussion about value engineering out that green roof.
So looks like you had sort of a bunch of health metrics like air quality and daylight were really built into this, and seemed like that was a core value for you. How do you guys use modeling to help you prioritize things like this, or how do you use these kind of things, these core values, to really drive the design?
Yeah, we definitely use modeling to do this. There are a number of softwares out there, and I won't remember them all, but an anecdote. So in that courtyard, we modeled sun throughout the course of the day for an entire summer, and just identified the area that would be best suited for the pool, and then the whole courtyard around that one parameter.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, well, it's obviously very site specific. So it's quite a few units. How many units are in this multifamily residence?
295.
Oh wow, yeah. And it looks like it's it's got a great pool and a lot of other health and wellness amenities. What else do you think about when you're designing for, let's say you're designing 295 units, and with people's health and wellness as a core value?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, I think the passive house elements are great, right? Basically compartmentalizing everybody's unit was a big point of conversation during COVID. The fact that we all saw a number of people sort of leave apartment buildings and head back to family members, go back and live with parents, and part of that was probably to avoid the isolation, but part of it is a little bit of a fear of not knowing what's going on next to you. And in the case of the passive house, a lot of testing that goes through blower door tests to make sure that each of those units is really well compartmentalized, and it's and there's tempered fresh air that's brought in on a regular basis. So there's just so many components there. We also look really, our interiors department does a great job, and and they collaborate with our sustainability group to make sure we're constantly looking at materials and making sure that, we're staying away from red list materials. We're going deeper than that, though. We're not just assuming that somebody says that their product's green and that's good enough for us. We're actually checking it and verifying. It's the old trust but verify motto.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
we're checking on that stuff to make sure that what we're putting into these apartments is healthy.
Right.
You have to balance it with budget. I would love to do apartments with, all wood floors, but occasionally we end up with the need to do carpets in the bedrooms, things like that. But again, just making sure that they're really highly sustainable, low VOCs.
So are you engaged with projects like after they're complete? Do you go back and try to take certain KPIs to measure the success? Because I would imagine a lot of the things you do in your buildings are fairly experimental and new, right? I mean, they might work theoretically, and then in practice, maybe not. What kind of how do you measure your success, like 3 years after a building's finished?
So we do post-occupancy evaluations. We do them, for as often as we can. We do those typically on our own dime because our clients are, a lot of times they're always super interested in the results. But for us, it's research and development. It's really understanding what works and what doesn't. We spent, a week on we had, I think, 3 to 5 people a day out kind of just observing one of our multifamily projects last summer. Interestingly, we were just talking about doing that. We were just geared up to do that at Gibson Point, but the building's so new, it's only 65% leased. So we're actually going to wait till next year and do it when it's 100% leased or 98% leased, so that we get a much better read on how people will be much more in tune with how they're going to use it, and likely we'll get better results.
Well, what's a good example of that kind of validated learning, like applying back into your practice? Like, for example, like if there were an earlier project that you could redo with your current mindset, what would you shift? I mean, is there a decision logic that you see differently now in with an older project, maybe?
Yeah, interesting question. I mean, I think these days we're really trying to do more of that site survey, the sort of people survey, if you will, at the start of our projects. The project that I was talking about for Massport, we spent almost a year, the one we're currently working on, we spent almost a year in program definition, and 3 or 4 months of that was actually just site observations. We had staff members on site sort of understanding how people were moving around the arrivals terminal. Like this is Terminal E, for those that don't know. Terminal E at Logan is the Internationals terminal. So it functions very differently than the other terminals. And for us, we needed to spend that time to understand it.
And international people are always so disoriented.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And you come into this area that's just kind of like, you don't see anything but roads and concrete. And, and I know myself when I travel overseas, especially when you're traveling with your family and you take one of those overnight flights and you end up somewhere and you didn't really sleep the way you wanted to. And, it's just, and oftentimes you don't speak any of the language, even though English is so, it's pretty much everywhere. But I still vividly remember getting to Paris, and my daughter was 10 years old. My son was probably 13, and we're my wife and I are trying to figure out, how are we going to get to the hotel? Where's the hotel? Where do we even go for cabs, right? And
Yeah,
it was not, at the time, it was not the friendliest place.
sure.
So
It's almost
just
like the
kind of,
welcome to America is a welcome to an anti-aesthetic and it's like an anti-welcoming.
right.
I mean, in general, I think people have got the point that we don't really want anybody to come to America anymore, but it's
Yeah,
been that way for a while. It's been that way for a while. It always feels when I come back from traveling abroad, it's almost like like an intentionally harsh reminder that you're in this place where nobody cares about you.
I know. We were kind of hoping that we could extend our design, all the way through the customs line, but we didn't get that luxury. So, but
uh,
at the end of the day, I think we will definitely improve the experience for once you get past customs.
yeah.
If you still have any patience left. So,
So, what do you see for Arrowstreet practicing forward? I mean, where do you see the next 3 to 5 years going for you?
I think we're gonna continue to kind of build on some AI implementation that we've been using. I'd really love to start automating some of the more mundane tasks. A lot of creative and talented people here, but a big part of architecture that people don't think about is really tedious and time-consuming detail work.
Yes.
So I would love to, and I've been on this for probably 4 years now. I haven't made any progress, but I'm definitely going to. I would love to automate the door hardware.
Okay.
Door hardware schedules. Just, it is something that's just, it's a painful process, and both in terms of building it and reviewing it. So that's one of those things that I just want to take off of people's plates. But at the same time, we're using AI to do concept design studies. We're using, we're guiding the tools. We're not just saying, oh yeah, design me a building. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of understanding. And then it takes some Photoshop to make it right. But it allows us to iterate really quickly on different ideas. Oftentimes we'll do some sketching. Some of us still hand sketch, and feed that into AI and say, okay, let's iterate on this and try these different try some different prompts and see where it goes.
Yeah, well, a lot of people working in these urban multifamily projects and things like this have told me that they can use AI to kind of visualize their regulatory constraints and other forms of constraints, environmental constraints and other things that, is, kind of the envelope, I guess, that you talk about conceptually, but to actually visualize it and see it and be able to work within those constraints right from the bat in a structured way seems like it could be great. So with the I definitely with Scan to Plan, we have a library of data. So, we are a technical service, but we're also like a data company because we have like a data set that we can train an AI with. We have thousands of buildings and thousands of point clouds and models that correspond to those buildings. So we've also been, thinking about where we can take that. and doing some research into that. But I would love to talk to you offline about the door and window schedule stuff, because I think that we might be able to help you out with that right away.
Yeah, that would be great because, I mean, really, we those of us that got into architecture, most of us got into it because of the creative aspects of it.
Of course.
And, drawing, checking, building schedules. Some people love it. But, if we can do it quicker, more accurately with less labor, that's kind of feels like a win-win.
No doubt. And I think, I don't know, interesting to, what do you feel like, what kind of constraints do you feel with AI as a design tool? Or is there like a line that you won't cross there, or
Well, I mean, we're not going to basically just take something from AI and
but have you been like iterating
as our work?
Are you using it to just like iterate on design concepts and stuff?
We have,
yeah. Cool.
I mean, there are certain things that, early on, it just, you can put in the parameters that you want, and rather than trying to model 100% model something, because as I said, some of us still sketch by hand, but not a lot of us. Most of our team, when you ask them to do a sketch, it comes back with something from a model, and often beautiful, but it's time consuming. And if you can build the bones of that model and try some different things quickly, it sparks ideas, and it then becomes our responsibility as architects and artists in a way to take those ideas and turn it into reality.
Yeah, in the previous podcast I had talked to Mark Foster Gage. He was saying, when you look back at the ancient Greeks and stuff, there's no evidence that they put everything into a drawing, right? He's saying, like, as an architect, who's to say that I have to design this incredible 3D thing and then put it all into a 2D drawing and hope that somebody can translate it back out into 3D space again? If you were to invent this thing from scratch, you wouldn't come up with this bizarre, convoluted way of doing things. And then,
it's funny, you ask where architecture is going, and we talk about that a lot here, because there are people that still do architecture the way that it's been done for decades and maybe even centuries, right? It is that everything's 2D, and you're just, even if they're building it 3D, they're just handing that set of 2D drawings to the contractors. Right. They're not sharing their models. They're not, collaborating.
It's weird. Why does it have to go? Why does everything have to get flattened out before it can be,
I mean, there's a lot.
My guest yesterday was talking about is what she calls file to factory, which is really where you don't have to flatten it out. You can basically take any kind of irregular 3D shape, and it gives a lot more agency to the architect to really think in 3D space.
Well, that's off at Congress Square. We never could have drawn that in 2D.
Yeah,
and even drawing it in 3D and trying to convey it to the fabricator would have been incredibly complicated. And even if we could have done that with 1,000 point dimensions and everything else, the time that would have taken them to redraw it and get it back to us and the back and forth would have been, sort of soul crushing. So instead, we just gave them the model.
Yeah.
We gave them the 3D model, and they fabricated from that.
Exactly. So, well, I mean, I see the way things are going, and actually a lot of sort of more speculative design that couldn't have been possible before is now becoming possible through these new kind of workflows. So Well, thank you so much, David. I mean, there's so much to get into, but I think everyone can go check out Arrowstreet, arrowstreet.com, and you can see plenty of examples. Nice thing about your work is it's all relatively in the same area, so you can take a tour of Arrowstreet buildings in Boston. And for you, you work right across the street from your one of your signature projects, so that's pretty excellent.
Yeah, I mean, we like doing projects in different locations, but there's something about doing projects that sort of impact your everyday life. That's really rewarding.
Yeah. Well, there's really, I hope everyone has a chance to get some of these visuals, because really some striking things coming from Arrowstreet. And I do kind of feel like everything has almost the momentum of an arrow in a lot of this work. And
that's the first time I've ever heard that.
So, well, thank you so much, David. And we'll be talking soon, and hopefully doing some big projects together.
All right. Thanks, Owen.
Great to see you. Take care. Have a good day.
Bye.
All right. Cheers.